Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris the High Guy Jacobs, and today we start a new 3-part series into the Rider Heroes in Doomsday Last Survivors. This one's going to be a little bit different though, because unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Riders have probably the most flexibility in the game. They have the capability, to fight in the field. They have the capability to run rallies, and now they have the capability of running garrisons with the addition of Chasey. That being said, we're going to do these ones just a little bit differently. Normally, like we did in the infantry, we looked first at field fighters, then rally and garrison. Or then we looked at rally, then we looked at garrison. In this situation, we're first going to start with a group of special heroes. And I say special heroes just because they have additions, or they're special heroes. They've got like the collaboration heroes. Then we'll look at who I think are some of the better rally heroes, and then we'll finally go through garrison. This doesn't mean that any of the heroes are bad at field fighting, for example, right? Or field battle, because like I mentioned, Riders have a lot of flexibility. You can put Bella in the field, you can put Elena in the field, you can put Cynthia in the field, you can put Catherine in the field, you can put Mai in the field, you can put Chasey and Felix in the field. There's a ton of flexibility in where they go. So what we're going to do is look a little bit more, because they can all be used in the field so handedly, we're going to break them down a little bit more so that we have an easier way to kind of navigate them. Okay, so the first ones that we're going to look at in the Rider category are the special characters, or the special heroes, the heroes with special attributes. Okay, we're going to start looking at Cynthia, and we're going to make sure that we look at both the Calamity sisters. But we're going to start with Cynthia first because she's one of the first heroes that you're going to end up getting in Legendary, especially if you're a pay-to-play player. You're going to have Cynthia, you're going to have Catherine, you're going to get them both. And if you end up paying to awaken Catherine through the VIP sections, right? If you end up paying to awaken Catherine through the VIP, you'll have 2 heroes. Whether I say they're decent or not is entirely dependent on one thing, and that's entirely dependent on whether you have their skins. If you do not have the sister skins, and this is why we're talking about them in the first situation where we talk about the special heroes, they have skins. If you do not have the skins, they are incredibly outdated and subpar. If you have the skins, they are relevant. Okay, so that's why we're going to talk about them and talk about them first. So let's look up at Cynthia. We'll look at her originally, and then we'll see what her skin does to change her. Okay? First and foremost, Doom Lady Cynthia Calamity. You'll notice she has the field battle talent tree instead of the skills. So this is one of the differences as to why you're going to use her typically in field only, and specifically for kind of node knocking. And if you're anti-node knocking, then you're going to use her to try to keep up with troops in the field, or to like aggress troops in the field, or annoy troops in the field, hit and run, things like that. Because she is still one of the fastest heroes in the game. Okay? With field battle, once you have that leveled up, plus you have the additional 12% travel speed here. I believe she's talking about an additional 75% travel speed once it's all equated. In fact, let's take a look at it right now. Let's see what we can find for movement speed. So we've got some movement speed coming in here. That's 9%. When they're attacked by skills, increased by 16. So let's not worry about that right now. 9%, 12%. So that's 21%. %, plus another 16%, plus another 15%. So you can start to see how she's still incredibly fast. We have it over here, plus an extra 6% movement speed, plus another 9% movement speed, travel speed. So she is incredibly fast in the field. Okay? However, that's when you're leading with her. However, when you're leading with her, that means that you're using the field battle skill, or the skill tree, or talent tree, which means that you're not getting as much rage skills off, which means you're not doing as much damage, right? So it's really good for hit and run, but it's not necessarily good for concentrated damage. And that's unfortunately where Cynthia is. Okay. Her and her sister both, because they're so old, are very outdated without their additional skins. And again, we're going to walk through them both. But let's look at what her skills do. So we've got dual fire at 1,000 rage, dealing damage to the target for 7,800 and reducing the target squad's attack by 30% and travel speed by 30% for 2 seconds. So you can already start to see 7,800 compared to some of these heroes that have 16,000, right? 15,000. 7,800 is pretty small in comparison, half that. Yes, we're getting a reduction in the attack, but it's only for 2 seconds, and we're getting a reduction in the travel speed for 30, but again, for only 2 seconds. So it's one of those situations where you're punching, not even really hard at all, and you're only getting subpar, kind of attributes out of it. Now we're getting an increase in a squad attack by 25%, which is, again, lacking when you look at some of the other ones, giving 35 to 48%, and then travel speed by 12%. Again, when you look at some of these heroes giving travel speed at 30%, it's a little outdated. Now, High Caliber is a passive skill providing squad basic attacks, giving a 20% chance to lightly heal wounded squads for a factor of 1,200. And if Catherine is in the squad, healing will be increased by 15%. So then instead you're getting an extra 120, 180... almost 1,500. So almost 1,400, sorry. Then we've got Embers of Revenge, increasing the Rider Squad HP by 15% and damage dealt to zombies by 30%. So the damage dealt to zombies is kind of subpar. I guess that's only really important if you're using her in Water War or Bounty Ground, which we will give you tips for in later, because obviously Riders do really well in Water War and Bounty Ground. And if you're looking for advice on how to do that, I can give you some of that as well, okay? But 15% for HP is not bad. But of course, when you're looking at some other skills that are giving much higher than that, I think it's Riven here we were looking at before, right? Infantry by 30%. So yes, I know infantry is supposed to be tankier, but when you compare them against other stats in it, you can start to see how it's still a little bit weak in comparison, okay? And when she's awakened, she's going to gain 50 rage after using a skill, which isn't very much. When you think about it, this was kind of a big deal back in the day, but it's not very much now, because you have a lot of rage generation coming out of these heroes with the skills talent tree. They're going to be generating a lot more rage, so that's not near enough. But once you have her awakened, you're going to have that, and now she's, she's free to awaken, so you can actually end up doing that at no cost, which is fine. But once we take a look at her skins, or her skin, pardon me, you'll start to see exactly why you kind of need the skin to make her usable. Okay? So when we compare them side by side, we're taking damage from 7,800 and we're jumping that to 1,000 or 10,000. So that's a huge increase already. We're still getting the reduction of squads attack by 30% and travel speed by 30%. But if your travel speed is greater than your enemy's travel speed, damage factor increases to 13,000. And like I've mentioned, she's one of the fastest heroes in the game. So if you have her paired with Catherine, for example, she's going to have a faster travel speed, meaning that damage is going to be looking at 13,000 instead, which keeps her on par with everybody else. All right. Plus, you get that attack reduction and travel speed reduction. So that by itself, pretty strong. Now, when we compare this here, we can start to see that there's a little bit of an increase. So here we're talking attack of 25% and travel speed by 12%. Here we're getting an attack by 30%, travel speed by 12%, but counterattacks have a 20% chance to increase the rider travel speed by 30% for 3 seconds. So now you have the capability of, as you're either running away or as you're either chasing or being, chasing or being chased, you have the capability of making yourself faster to either keep up or run away. And think about it, counterattacks giving you that extra travel speed by 30% is also going to trigger for giving you to make sure that you're going to be hitting at 13,000 every time. Next, we've got a step away. So when we compare this, it's going to be replacing High Caliber. So instead you have a 20% chance to heal at 12,000 or 1,200. If Catherine is there, you're getting an extra 15% healing. Instead, you still get that same 20% chance to heal at 1,200. If Catherine is in the squad, you get an additional 18% rider defense, as well as that 15% healing. Okay, so have that 18% defense is actually pretty decent, especially when you're getting a 30% attack up here. So now we have attack, now we have defense, and now we still have HP coming from this last one here. There's no comparison. There's no difference to this one. They haven't changed Embers of Revenge. It's still the same. But you're still getting HP. So now we have attack coming, we've got defense coming, and we've got HP coming, which kind of keeps her in line with the rest of the heroes of this generation. Now, when she's awakened, we're going from just an increase of 50 rage to now we have an increase of rider travel speed by an additional 12% and gains 50 rage and heals. Right? We're still only getting 50 rage, but we're also healing and we're also getting an additional 12%. So now we're much faster in the field, which is going to guarantee that 13,000 damage every time. You can start to see why you kind of need the skin buff in order to keep her more relevant. Plus, when you have her, you also get this right here, the rider squad travel speed at additional 2%. So it's one of those situations where if you don't have the skin, she's really out of date. You're not going to really use her outside of Battleground or Water War maybe. Or if you're one of those who like to node knock, you might use her to node knock to make sure that you can escape quick enough. But once you have that skin, you can actually start to use her more in the field, more in battle, and more in things like that. So it gives her more flexibility. But the problem is these skins are very expensive. There is typically an event that comes by. It's come by at least a couple of times to provide this skin. I believe it's for $400 for both skins, compared to having to get the 250 of these vouchers, which are incredibly, incredibly difficult and expensive to get. Because this event, I think, only comes around every, 4 months or something like that, 3 months. And it's expensive to get these vouchers. So the skins themselves are quite expensive. $400, I think, for both of them during the skin event when it comes around. But that's really the only way that these characters become usable in the game. Other than that, they just sit in the collection. So that's Cynthia. Next, we're going to look at Catherine, because she's in the same boat, right? She was one of the first heroes that you can get. You leveled her up from the VIP, VIP section that we were talking about. You can only purchase her. She's only available to purchase, so you have to buy her. And she was good at the original, right? She was good in the beginning. Her and Cynthia did very well in the beginning. But now they're just outdated, even when you count the synergy that they have together, unless you use their skins. So again, let's talk about Catherine, and let's go through. Now, you'll notice she has the skills tree. So if you're going to use her and Cynthia in the field, you're probably going to lead with Catherine and have Cynthia as a co-lead, just to make sure that you're going to have that additional skills tree to deal more damage. Unless you're going with the run and gun type situation, hit and run situation, where you're going to lead with Catherine instead, or lead with Cynthia instead, pardon me. So let's go over Catherine's skills. We've got Bloody Saw, costing 1,000 rage, dealing damage directly to a target, right? One target at a cost or a damage factor of 7,700, with the next attack having a 50% chance. Pardon me, a 50% chance to deal bonus damage at 4,700. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. So basically, you're only dealing 77 hit damage up front, and there's only a 50% chance to jack that up. So you can start to see, of course, even if she maxes out, we're only talking about 12,000 damage, but that's only a 50% chance to deal 12,000. Otherwise, you're dealing 7,700, and when you compare it to the others dealing 14,000, 15,000, it just doesn't track, right? So it's one of those situations where it's unfortunate, but it is a little outdated. And the damage just isn't enough. Next, we've got Doom Girl. You're going to increase the rider squad attack by 25%. And then when Cynthia is in the squad, increase rider squad attack by an additional 12%. So if you're running it with Cynthia, you're getting a total of 37% attack. If you're running it without Cynthia, you're just getting 25%, which isn't bad. But obviously, you see the synergy with running with Cynthia. Now we've got Crazy Obsession, where we're going to increase the rider squad travel speed by 15% and damage dealt to zombies by 40%. So again, you put this with Cynthia, there's a lot more synergy with that rider squad travel speed, plus an additional, I believe it's 70% damage to zombies. So in Water War, something like that, Bounty Ground, there's actually a lot of synergy where they can actually work together and do pretty well. Having that additional 15% to your movement speed and 12% from Cynthia makes for a decent pairing. Now we've got Pink Lightning. Squad's basic attacks have a 10% chance to recover 140 rage, which, consider it, once every 10 seconds. I mean, that's 140 rage. That's, you know, almost 20% of your rage category. That's, you know, 14% of your rage meter once every 10, almost guaranteed once every 10 seconds, right? You know, based on a 10% chance. It could happen more often, it could happen less, but take it on average, right? Which isn't bad. It's a good rage regeneration. Plus, having the skills here means she's going to pump out skills more often. More skills, more damage, more kills, more points, more rewards. Easy peasy. Lastly, her chainsaw dance is going to awaken her skill, which is going to guarantee that damage. So she does get this guaranteed up to 12,400 damage total. But it comes in 2 waves. So basically, both of these are going to be influenced by defense and stuff like that. So it's just one of those situations where it's guaranteed, but it comes in 2 waves. So it's, you know, it's one of those things. And it's unfortunately only when you get awakened that you get that guaranteed damage. But again, if you don't have her skin, that's as good as she's ever going to get. And when we look at the rest of the ones in the field, the rest of the heroes in the field, for example, it's unfortunately going to be a scenario where you're going to see that she doesn't stand up to the other heroes that do really well in the field. Because Bella still does well in the field. Elena still does well in the field. Chasey, Felix still do well in the field, right? So you're not going to see them in this episode. They're going to come out in later episodes because they do better in other situations. But Catherine, as long as you still have her skin, you can start to see how she is still going to be quite usable. And let's go over that skin so we can see the comparison. So first off, having the skin is going to give you an extra 2% attack to your rider squads. So you're going to get travel speed with Cynthia. You're getting squad attack by Catherine. And when you pair them together, that equals a decent amount. So let's compare the damage and we'll see what we have in comparison. We can start to see how they start to jack up her damage a little bit. So unawakened, you're going to still get that damage factor of 7,700 with a 50% chance to deal bonus factor of 30%. There's also a 30% chance of triggering combo damage once for a factor of 2,700. Each time combo damage is triggered, there's a chance of triggering combo damage again. The chance of triggering combo damage decreases with the number of triggers. So it's going to go down from 30% and drop down from there. But this isn't bad. So you're going to deal 7,700 plus an additional 4,700 plus a 30% chance to deal an additional 2,700 plus additional chances to deal additional 2,700. So if you get lucky, you can look at dealing a decent punch of damage for your skill. Okay? And that's unawakened. Okay? Next, we're going to look. This one here is not going to change. You're still getting that same 25% attack and 12% additional, so 37% attack when you're running with Cynthia. Here we are going to get a change, so we're going to, instead of just a 5% and 12%, or a 15%, pardon me, and a 40%, we're going to see an increase of Rider Squad travel speed by 15% first, Rider Squad HP going up by 30%, which is a much more acceptable level, and then damage to zombies at 40%, which I'm not really worried about the Zambos. So we're getting an increase. The travel speed stays the same, the damage stays the same, but we're getting an additional 30% HP, which, if you know, 30% HP is huge because HP is very, very needed, or sought after anyways. And then lastly, Pink Lightning is going to change to Cyber Sweetheart. We're going to get from that 10% chance to recover 80 rage, and that's going to change to a 10% chance to recover 80 rage with each time combo damage is triggered, reducing the defense of the enemy target by 21% for 3 seconds. So each time combo is triggered, you're going to have a reduction in that defense, and that's going to go up to 42%, which is a huge defense reduction. And if you think about it, if that triggers and triggers again, it becomes 84%. You see what I'm saying? So it can trigger multiple times, and if it triggers multiple times, you're getting a huge reduction. Now, granted, that's based on luck, and it's based on a 30% trigger rate, but, you know, you could have that hit once, twice in a row, which isn't bad, okay? You get a huge defense reduction. Now, lastly, let's compare the Awaken skill. So the Awaken skill only used to just give you that guaranteed damage. Now, after awakening, the damage goes up. So now we're dealing 8,500 damage and 51 guaranteed. So now that's 13,600 guaranteed. with a 50% chance of triggering combo damage at 3600. So her damage numbers just spike ridiculously after being awakened. Okay? Because now we have a 50% chance. It's a coin toss on if that damage triggers. And then it's a coin toss if that damage triggers again. I'm not sure exactly what the... It doesn't tell us what the decrease of the number of triggers. But it's one of those situations where even if it's 30% after, you see what I'm saying? Like, that damage now becomes very, very relevant, especially with this damage reduction or the defense reduction. Okay? So with her skin, she becomes very valuable, very usable. But again, those skins, hard to come by. Okay? Now, unless you're a new, I know there's a little bit of a difference if you have a new account. Like, brand new accounts have a much easier time getting some of the stuff that we're talking about. Because I think that they made it like, you'd have to double check if you're a new account. You probably get it cheaper. But for older accounts, we're looking at $400 to get the skins. I think newer accounts are a lot cheaper than that, but you'd have to double check. So, real quick, both of those two heroes, Cynthia and Catherine. Cynthia still the fastest in the field. Good for hitting and running. Synergy, she synergizes really well with Catherine like we talked about. But if you'd like to use Cynthia in the field outside of this, you can still pair her with Bella, for example, to give you additional movement speed and additional damage in the field. You can pair her with Elena for additional movement speed or additional damage. She still has some usability, even in water, like I said, Water War, Bounty Ground, stuff like that. And if you're looking with Catherine, honestly, I think Catherine really only has playability if you pair her with Cynthia. Yes, you can use your pairing her with other... granted, you can pair her with other heroes if you don't have any, because, you know, she still is putting out damage, especially if you have her awakened. But in order to get her awakened, you have to pay for it. And for the cost to awaken her, it's not really worth it anymore unless you have the skin, which is a whole additional cost. So Cynthia and Catherine, that's why I've included them in this first one. It's a situation that says without the skins, they're kind of outdated and you probably won't use them unless you don't have anybody else. But if you do have the skins and if you do have them awakened by chance, they still are relevant and they still have play from there. Now, those are going to be the two that we talk about in the specialty side of things. And lastly, for this video, we're going to talk about Mai. Because Mai is another special hero because she was the collaboration hero. So if you remember, collaboration heroes are a little bit special for two reasons. First off, they have this special here, this special skill, right? So it's basically like an additional, you know, like an additional talent or an additional skill. And they're expensive to upgrade. So if you want to level them up, for example, outside of the event, watch this. Let me show you. Nope, not that one. Let me show you in skills. It costs twice as much, 2 times. So 2 fragments to 1 fragment in order to level them up. So the question becomes, are they good? Yes. Mai is great. She's a great hero. You go through her kit. Pardon me. We'll go through her kit and you'll see she does great damage. She's got good movability, good movement speed, things like that. So there's lots of reasons to use her. But is she twice as good as the average hero? No. So unless you've leveled her up during the event, chances are you probably won't level her up anyways. She's arguably the fastest in the field. I know I was talking about Cynthia, but Mai and Cynthia are pretty much the same. The only difference here, if you look at Rider Squad travel speed, so you're getting an additional 30% when you're leaving battle for 5 seconds if you're remaining a squad. You're getting 15% travel speed here, which is more than the 12% that you're getting from here. So technically Mai is faster, but again, 2 times the cost faster? No, I would not say 2 times the cost faster. Okay. So let's look through her skills and we'll know which we're talking about. So first and foremost, we have this one. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I'll just kill it. But she's going to be dealing increased damage to ranged squads by 5%, but damage taken from infantry squads, increases by 3%. So she's going to deal more to ranged, but take more from infantry, which isn't necessarily a bad trade because at the end of the day, infantry already deals the least amount of damage in the field anyways. So a small increase to that isn't necessarily a big deal, which is why I think it's pretty balanced. Next, we've got her skills. Hakuro no Mai. It's a raised skill costing 1,000 We're going to deal scorch damage to up to 2 enemies in a fan-shaped area in front every second for 3 seconds, okay? And reduce their travel speed by 25%. So we're going to deal 4,500 every second for 3 seconds. So that's 45, 9, that's 13,500 damage. And you're going to reduce their travel speed by 25%, make them slower for 3 seconds. So decent damage to 2 targets, no breakdown, no reduction in damage, and then just a simple reduction in their speed. So pretty good skill right off the rip. Then we've got this one. I'm not going to pronounce that because, again, I don't want to kill it. It's a passive skill. It's going to give that rider HP by 20% and basic attack damage dealt to slowed targets by 33%. And since you're slowing them right out the rip with your skill for 3 seconds, those additional 3 hits are dealing an additional 33% on your basic attack damage, which is a nice combo to effect. Nice synergy together. Next, we have Rider Squad attack increase by 30% and Rider Squad travel speed by 15%. Okay, so we're making them faster, making the enemies slower, hitting harder, and a 30% increase to Rider Squad attack. Lastly, we have Musasabi no Mai. I can't believe I actually tried to pronounce that. Another passive skill, increasing Rider Squad attack by an additional 20%. So in reality, we're getting 50% to Rider Squad attack. And leaving a battle increases Rider Squad travel speed by 30% for 5 seconds if the remaining squad size is above 50%. So as long as you've got the troops, as long as you're, chasing or running or things like that, this allows you to keep up with them or run away as long as you need to. Gives you a lot of flexibility. And lastly, we have her advancement here, which is going to enhance Musasabi no Mai. I got to stop doing that. So instead of going 20%, we're getting a 30% increase on a squad attack. So that brings us to 60% overall with her. And then after leaving, you get 45% to your movement speed for 5 seconds, as long as you're above 50%. So you can start to see how she becomes, again, one of the absolute fastest in the field. Hits hard, has decent damage, can allow her to stick to enemies, keep up, punch hard, even though she doesn't have the skills talent tree, even though she's got field battle. So with the field battle talent tree, yes, she's going to be moving faster, dealing less damage, right? Less skills, but basic attacks are doing more, allows her to keep up, allows her to slow down. So there's a lot of synergy with using, her and somebody else, right? So her and, say, Elena, for example, who benefits from flanking a target, which we'll talk about later. So, who are you going to pair her with? Again, lots of flexibility. You could pair her with someone like Bella, someone like Elena, someone like Chasey, someone like Cynthia if you want to go for a really fast line. You could even put her with Catherine if you have nobody else. There's lots of flexibility in there. She is, again, just one of the fastest on the field. Specifically used node knocking, hit and run, stuff like that. Okay? But those are going to be the 3 special heroes that we talk about today. We have the next video, we'll talk about the rally heroes, or the ones that I think do work really well in rally positions. And then in the third video, we'll talk about the garrison heroes for riders. But again, remember, riders have a ton of flexibility. I don't mean to repeat on this a lot, but they have a ton of flexibility because they are the fastest in the field. They do decent damage in the field, and they tank decent damage in the field. They're like middle damage on both sides, and then fastest in the field. Okay? So it's a good flex pick. They have lots of availability, lots of flexibility. You just got to make sure you use them properly. Okay? But that's it, folks, for the first episode of this Rider Heroes Deep Dive, where we talk about specialty heroes. Tune in next when we talk about rally. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you saw anything in this video that you think I did wrong, or if you see anything in this video that you want to give me advice on, go ahead and hit the comment section. Don't forget to fill out the notification bell so you get any new drops whenever we drop new content. Love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time, stay lifted.